On this episode of AV Week, how to get more women involved in the AV industry, personal and immersive AV experiences, and the acquisition of Hall Technologies. All that and more next on AV Week.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is AV Week, episode 557, recorded Friday, April 22nd, 2022. Personal AV.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by
Extron, industry-leading technology backed by world-class support.
This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of audio-visual news and information. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. With us to discuss the news and information we have gathered this week, and we've got a couple doozies. First and foremost, newly minted QSC employee Charmaine Torella. Welcome, ma'am.
Hello, and thank you.
Absolutely.
Yay.
Congratulations there. Also with us, the Senior Regional Sales Manager for Integrated Systems for Sure. She is, I was going to say in charge of me, but she covers the area that I am in. Miss Cassie Berger from Sure. Welcome, ma'am.
Great to be here. Thanks.
And just if you're listening to this in the United States, there is a 95% chance that Cassie is also covering your area as well here recently too. And Canada. The rest of the world, it's somebody else. But those two places, the darn near 48 out of 50 states, not really, but she covers a lot. And last but not least, an old friend and a host of State of Control, Mr. Steve Greenblatt from Control Concepts. Welcome, sir.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. I mentioned this really quickly before we get to the stories. We do have a couple. As I was putting together this show, I suddenly looked up and realized, holy cow, all three of you are intimately involved in leadership at AVIXA. All of three of you are involved in diversity at AVIXA, just a leadership search committee. I just think it's cool the fact that the three of you are already know each other and heavily involved in the industry. So I thought that was kind of cool. Our first story actually comes to us from AVNation's very own Taylor Moore. Taylor's sitting in the background, so he can chime in if he'd like to. Taylor had the chance to visit Citi Field, which is where the Mets attempt to play every year ahead of the opening of baseball season. Mr. Moore writes about the partnership between Samsung and the stadium, calling it, quote unquote, the most technologically advanced ballpark in the Major League. There are 5 levels of LED ribbon boards. There are 1,300 LCD screens throughout it, and an all-digital experience. Mr. Greenblatt, when it comes to stuff like this, what does this experience nature of all digital, what does it do to sports? What does it do to live events as we're trying to get folks back in real life?
There's two different ways we could look at this. One for sports in general, I think that the sports experience at home has grown quite a bit. So it's important to get people out and getting them to want to spend the ticket price to go to a game and be in person and go through what you have to go through to go to a game these days. The travel, the parking, the costs, and so forth. Excuse me, but it's you need to make it more of an experience from the fact that you need to get something out of being there and feeling like you're in the game and experiencing something more firsthand. And so I think that's very important. And when it comes to looking at this from maybe a return to work or a return to in-person events, kind of the same is true. Is there needs to be some value added to having that more of an enriched experience from being in person and having. I think we're all used to being able to have dialogue and to be able to interact with something, be able to have the fact that we can access social media and have an internet connection, and all of that needs to be packed into something in person and some.
All right. Charmaine, Steve mentioned and said the word experience an awful lot of times. As someone who's hung out at AVIXA quite a bit, they started talking about that a number of years ago. So how do we leverage AV? How do we leverage these technological advances to increase the in-person experience and to, quite frankly, make the cost of the ticket, cost of admission, worth it in today's age?
Well, precisely like MetLife Stadium is doing now. I started in AV in 2010, and I remember Citi Field, was implemented around that time and the technology that went into it at the time. And it was great, it was nice, but for where Citi Field is in Queens, because I know you always associate me with Queens, it's absolutely in Queens. I'm from the Bronx. But where it is in the tri-state area, you're dealing with a lot of audience that is into social media, into engagement. You're from Times Square. We see that every day. And it helps where it is located in Queens to drive a lot of people there, right? Because to jump from New York City or wherever you are to Queens, not always an easy track, especially from subway. But with this level of using the AV to create that immersive experience, making it easier is the biggest thing. The biggest thing is making it easier to people to attend that park, especially with the long lines, the subways right there, right leading to the stadium, the highway, everything, just making it faster and easier for them to get to the venue. And as they get into the venue, providing, a lot more information that's digitally accessible that they can, see and engage with. I think the biggest way to use AV is to do those things, right? Through face recognition, which they're now implementing at Citi Field. That is awesome stuff. I mean, I don't know any really big venue place that does that.
I'm not going to make Taylor come in here because, but I do want to. I'm going to use a question that he posed. This is not my original question. This is 100% Taylor's. When he was looking at it, he said, "Okay, that's great. What happens when you sell your ticket?" Right? Or what happens if Cassie and I are both in St. Louis? What happens if she's got tickets to let's say that Cassie has season tickets to Cardinals baseball. She doesn't, but what if she did? And she wanted to bless me and give me tickets to for my birthday, right? Mm-hmm. I don't look like Cassie. In any way, shape, or form, right? The hair's getting there, but the rest of it's not, right? So how does that work? Or
I don't know if they got that far yet, but that's a good damn question. Don't know how it works, but I'll tell you how it also works for security purposes. Let's say, all right, somebody got a hold of Cassie's tickets and stole it or something, right? And then they try to get in and it's, this is not Cassie, and she reported, oh my God, and they can, it kind of adds a layer of security in a way. And I think for tracking purposes, to answer a little bit into Taylor's question, and I know this is not a complete answer by any means, because I have to actually go there and see it in action. But for security purposes, for those people who do those purchases, people who make fraudulent tickets, people who, do those things to get a free show and free access, this is an extra layer of security that adds protection for Citi Field as well as you, the end user, to prevent someone from doing that with your identity. So I think maybe that's what they had in mind. That's a guess, but it may not be the complete answer. But that would comfort me as a customer. That's how I feel.
All right, Cass, the same question is how do we, besides the fact that we were picking on you and using you for an avatar there, how do we increase this experience? One of the things is as AVNation, we get a lot of press releases. Sure has made inroads and made serious bones about the fact that they were part of the Super Bowl halftime show. You guys were part of the Grammys. Those are in-person experiences. But beyond that, how does AV increase or augment this in-person experience to make it worthwhile?
I think there's a few things to consider, and just to kind of talk about what you just mentioned about the ticket thing and how do you identify users and people coming to events. There's a thing as geofencing, right? So I think as people come to the stadium, that immediately kicks in. So geofencing is all around the stadium, all around the concert venue, wherever you are, you're being geofenced. Every time you pull up social media, it's telling you, hey, doesn't a bratwurst sound really good? You hate bratwurst, but it looks really good on your phone and it sounds really good. And I bet you can find one really close to where you're standing right now, or a Bud Light, whatever it might be. So whether or not you realize it, that is targeting you in some way, and it's using AV in a lot of capacities, but it's using your device. When it comes to live experiences, I think what we've learned from COVID, and this isn't, I'm not going to use the baseball example here. What I am going to use is what we've learned is the immersive experience, once again, is incredibly important. And I don't know if anybody has attended the live Van Gogh exhibits, but that's a perfect example of how do you bring people into an environment where you can have this immersive experience and actually evoke feeling without feeling and touching anything. So as AV professionals, I am on the audio side and sure has done a wonderful job of staying relevant throughout this entire pandemic experience, as has everybody else. But I do want to focus on the video, and I do want to focus on assisted listening and listening devices and how we have made and focused these live experiences, transitioned them into personal experiences. So they're live, but they're personal. And we're creating feeling based off of what you're seeing, what your personal experience is. And we didn't do that before. It was kind of like, we're going to give you the experience that we built for you. Now it's, we want to cater this to your personal level of experience. And how do we do that? Through AV. So it's interesting.
Does that get us into a conversation about AR and XR when it comes to those personal experiences? Or is it just simply the more immersive it can be, we can all experience kind of the same, the same environment different ways?
I think both.
Yeah, I mean, I'll agree. It can do getting us into AR and XR, but here's one thing just popped out from something Cassie said: the immersive experience and how people feel about that. The thing with people working from home for the last 2 years is their employers are trying to get them back into the office, right? And they don't know how. More money is not going to do it. They like working from home. But if we leverage this immersive AV technology to create an environment that makes them want to run to an experiential place, they will probably look more forward to running back into the office. And I think that's something that corporations, I know one major corporation is really surveying with its 50,000 employees worldwide as to how can we make it more engaging, this environment. I think the application that Citifield started executing is a way that the corporate and clients can help seduce and solicit their employees to come back to site, right? If we don't want to go back to the same desk, we don't want to go back to the cubicles, we want to be in a place that's like, wow, and engaging, to give us a reason to want to leave home, right? And I think that's one way we can grow it and leverage that AV type of immersive experiential technology.
But to your point, wow and engaging for you, for that individual person. And that's the struggle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Next story comes to us from Cindy Davis and AV Network, as well as Cindy also is the editor for AV Technology. She had an exclusive interview with Hall Technologies CEO Jason Schwartz, as well as Vice President Hal Truex. Hall has recently been acquired by Michigan-based Gun Lake Investments. Gun Lake is the non-gaming development arm of the Gun Lake tribe. According to Schwartz, the acquisition gives Hall significant resources to pursue their long-term growth plan. Truex highlighted their quote-unquote aggressive product roadmap. If you look at Hall's technology releases the last 12 months, there have been significant focuses on healthcare control as well as gaming. Charmaine, we'll start with you on this. What markets are we looking at that are primed for another player like Hall Technologies with this new investment, with this new acquisition?
The higher ed market to start, right? Because we know the higher ed market is doing a lot of the gaming studios and things of that nature. So that market would definitely be interested in that. There are the healthcare market. Absolutely. I know that was mentioned there. Would definitely look for that as well. Especially, for patient care and the rooms and the beds and having certain things to give them access to things. I think that would be two markets that would be interested in. And then the tech market. Absolutely the techs, right? You're thinking of, I'll give Take-Two Interactive, for example, right? They create all the games, to create those environments, those rooms that Take-Two Interactive would do when they're trialing out games, when they're showcasing a new whatever, and certain clients like that. I think the techs, maybe Facebook and those guys definitely would be interested in that.
Cassie, take a look at this from an ownership standpoint, and we're seeing more and more private equity in the AV industry. Sure, is privately held. We also have a number of folks that are publicly owned publicly, whether it's stock or what have you. And then we have private equity. What do we think about more and more private equity involved in the AV market from a good point, bad point, pros and cons, or is it just, it's money and somebody else is just owning it?
I think it's really important. It's protection. There's a lot of protection in privately held organizations and a lot of control that they maintain. So not only is there a security for an associate working for those organizations, a certain level of comfort, but there is also a standard almost of, that the decisions being made on that level are going to be the best for that organization and for everybody who works there, whether it's from a product standpoint, from a acquisition standpoint, whatever it might be. So I think privately held organizations, and I'll say it again, there's just a level and sense of security, period. I will say, so I actually repped with my dad Hall Research at the time before they transitioned to Hall Technologies. And they were a very small but successful business. Their bread and butter was OEMing for medical and healthcare, and really doing that KVM, so keyboard, video, mouse, remote monitoring for healthcare institutions. And so kind of seeing where their growth is going to take them and seeing the potential they have in, and I know gaming, so it brings a different dynamic to it, but I also look at this new change or transition as something that's going to put them into a very rapidly growing, not industry per se, but market of young users. Young users are strong, massively into gaming right now, right? And if we think of it from an AV standpoint, those are the future of our business and our organizations, because those are the people that tend to come over to the AV side professionally. They're like, well, wait, I can do what I enjoy doing and I can make money doing it. Awesome, sign me up. This is an adult career that I can actually do and do what I enjoy. So I think it's very interesting. And I think it was smart. And I think that it goes back to smart decisions are made by people who are invested in their organization, which is a privately held organization. They're fully invested in what they do, what they own, and you see them care about these types of decisions. And I think that's the difference.
All right. Steve, Cassie made a couple of points there that I was actually going to bring up with you as well, plus the fact that Hall has gotten into control, which is 100% your wheelhouse as well. So take a look about where Hall Technology belongs now in the AV space, now that they have gotten into a number of areas that they hadn't gotten into, prior to this investment.
There's definitely opportunity for them to look at some markets where maybe the integrated AV wasn't necessarily being used. That's something that I think can be an opportunity for them. And with regard to the control, they're looking to provide some type of a package so that somebody can easily put together a system that will allow them to have an A to Z package. So they can come to Hall and they could say, hey, design me a solution, and here it is, and you can easily put it in, and their control is really set up to work very easily with their products. So that's another big value that they can provide in that regard. I think that there's also opportunities to look at some of the systems that maybe don't have the same level of budget, that can look at some of the higher end products, and there a lot of that gets overlooked, I think, in our industry. And I think that there's a lot more AV being put in, but it may not necessarily be by the bigger names. Not to say that Hall won't become one of the bigger names, but why not capitalize on opportunity that's there for you? So I think that's another place that they could probably position themselves. And I think control is just becoming a part of almost every solution these days, which is a good thing. And but it's also something that everyone needs to know what it takes to make it work, and what it takes to make it work on a bigger scale.
Absolutely. All right. Finally, Amala Reddy, who I had the chance to meet from Commercial Integrator, she writes about getting more women into leadership roles. Amala interviews Erin Mayer Moran, Molly Keone, and the incomparable Corey Schaefer. They all talk about the impact of imposter syndrome, especially on women in AV, the need to foster opportunities in high school and colleges, as well as the importance of mentorship. Cassie and Charmaine, I'm going to let you two lead this, because not that Steve and I don't have comments or perspectives, and I've got a question for Steve at the end. But Cassie, we'll start with you with a very simple question that Amala tried to started with as well. How do we get more women leaders in the industry?
It's a great question, and it's hard. Leadership is built by experience, and it doesn't have to be experience within our industry for AV, but it has to be experience, period. So you have to find the people that and the ladies that have been there, done that, met the right people, seen different areas of any industry and business in general. And then how do you bring them in to our industry specifically and get them interested? And a lot of that is passion. A lot of that is going to be how do you connect these individuals with people that inspire them? Mentorship, to me, it's not about we make this huge error a lot of times where we say, congratulations, you have a mentor. Here is your mentor. It's like, well, I don't like my mentor. Like, my mentor and I have nothing in common, and I'm not inspired by them. I don't want to work with this person. Sign me up for a different one. So I think the biggest thing is, how do you find somebody, or when you meet somebody, how do you recognize that they inspire you and you inspire them, and you create this relationship? And it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen because you go to a Women in AV luncheon and meet a bunch of people per se, but that might be a good starting place. At the same time, all of a sudden you're talking to somebody and you say, oh, you're a single mom, you have kids, you're working, you travel, like, we have a lot in common. Now we can build that as our foundation, and you're going to teach me things and I'm going to teach you things, and we're going to grow together. And so I think the biggest thing is fostering the capability of putting people together, bringing people together. It could be virtual, it could be in person. But how do you do that? And then how do you successfully implant in them the desire to grow independently of their organization, and in a way that makes them want to become leaders? They're learning about themselves, they're learning about others. And we need to separate that from the organizations with they work, because we make that error as well. We say, because you work X, Y, and Z, here's somebody that you should talk to. No, find somebody outside, maybe a different industry, maybe somewhere else. Find somebody different that you can talk to, that inspires you. And then you realize a lot of things about yourself, and you realize that, oh, maybe I could be a leader too.
Charmaine, Cassie mentioned mentorship there. That was kind of where I was going to start with you. You and I are roughly of the same generation. Steve is as well.
Thank you for aging me.
Hey, Charmaine.
How do we? I didn't say that.
He said that we looked alike earlier. So I mean,
I said we didn't. I said my hair is getting there. I do not look like you. But how do we get kind of, into that mentorship mindset and that role where, there are times, and imposter syndrome can happen to anybody. There are times I don't have anything to say, right? I don't feel like I have anything to offer anybody. And other folks will say, well, no, I learned this from you, or I've gotten this from you. How do we kind of get beyond ourselves and offer ourselves out as a mentor?
Yeah, I'm going to take it for answer that with a different direction.
Yep.
And I know it's going to be an odd direction, being the former chair of the Diversity Council. Here's why I'm going to take that direction. I think it's okay if you're a woman, if you are going to you don't have to be a woman to mentor a woman leader. And I say because when I was chairing the Diversity Council, and we were doing all these initiatives, a lot of people reached out to me, a lot of women. Now, here's the first thing. There's not a lot of women of color in AV to begin with. Put it out there, right? There are some women in AV. So you don't have a lot of options to start of where and who to go in order to get that mentorship. That's where we're starting from right now. So I had this one lady who was working with a consultant firm, and she was working with, I guess, a colleague that had very conservative beliefs, where she had very liberal beliefs. And their beliefs got reflected, revealed to each other. And she's like, hey, I can't believe he believes that. And we talk about this and he says this stuff. And we talk about this and he says this stuff. And I said, well, you guys continuously talk. She's like, yeah. I said, he's talking to you. I said, so obviously, regardless of what you believe, he has an interest in talking to you. How about this? How about you put that aside and think about asking or working with this person to become your mentor, because he has X amount of years experience. I know you don't believe in his political beliefs, but he's still talking to you. He's not slapping you away. And that's what we have to do sometimes as mentors and people who are looking for the mentorship. It's not going to be in the obvious places. As I said, again, there's not a lot of, a plethora of women leaders in this industry to choose from. I have the fortune of, now I'm in a company where Corey Schaefer is here. This is awesome for me. But I didn't have that luxury before I came into QSC, right? I really didn't have a lot of options. So I did work with male mentors that were not like me and had very different beliefs and different lifestyles. And we found those common denominators that linked us to help me, get information about this industry and learn how to navigate through this in a good way to make me successful. So I think as you're looking, you don't have to look for like. It's better not to look for like, to kind of pair yourself up with a different puzzle piece, because not every puzzle piece is the same, right? They're unique. But when they come together, they make one seamless picture. And that's the idea, I think, behind mentorship. Look for someone that doesn't have the same thoughts and see what other things they can offer you to help you navigate through this.
And let me say something that I don't know if it's controversial, but and this is for guys out there, you can have a woman as a mentor. It's okay. And in fact, based on what Charmaine just said, it's probably preferable. One of my dearest mentors that I have, I am incredibly blessed to have her in my life. She is an incredibly smart woman, and she is successful, and she teaches me something every time we get together. So, it's something that open yourself up to folks who don't look like you and see like you, is an important thing for a mentor. Mr. Greenblatt, you'll have not the last word on this, because, this is still a conversation, but the one thing I have learned over the years is using the influence that we have and the positions that we have as non-people of color and non-female people. How do we foster these opportunities? How do we as men help those around us?
I love this topic, first off, and I'm always glad to contribute to it, and I'm proud that I have a staff who are a third of our team is women now, and it's something that I've really, it was a goal of mine. So that's maybe one way, make opportunities on your team for that you are looking to bring women into, not just because, but because they add a different value than you can get from a man, that they bring a different perspective, that they think differently, that they have different qualities that men are not as strong with. And some of those are maybe obvious, and some of those may not be obvious. So that's one thing. It's interesting that we have this conversation, because I could tie it into the state of control that we recently had, where we were focusing on recognizing female programmers, and we're doing a part 2 of that, and it's just really neat to be able to hear the stories that the women that we spoke with have been able to share, because their journey has been different than some of the men in the industry. But they also are looking, and we're going to discuss this when we are going to do our part 2, about how men can and others can help them in the future, and also help other people go along on that path and make it not necessarily easier, but be more supportive. So what the question that you asked is not easy to answer, but what I can say from my experience is that we have to extend a hand. We have to open up ourselves so that it's inviting for people to come and speak with us. We have to create opportunities, and we also have to put ourselves out there saying that we want to help and that we want to engage and have those types of relationships, and know that there are going to be people that may need us to go the extra mile and be able to come and pull them out a little bit, because they're not necessarily always going to come to us. So I think it's being very, very proactive, and also making it inviting and comfortable, and also just making it known that this is something that's important.
And who is our consumer? It's not a group of the same type of person. Our consumer is everybody from an AV standpoint. And we can go back to the original article. You look at the crowds walking into a baseball stadium, and it is a sea of multicolor people from every background in life, young, old, everything. You see a very vast difference between everybody, a ton of diversity. So if our businesses aren't built on diversity and built on that sea of multicolor individuals, we're not properly targeting our consumer. And we can't.
And that's going to lead into my last point. That's why AV has to tell on itself. Tim hears me say this all the time. AV has to tell on itself more. No one, the audience, doesn't even understand who we are. Let's tell on ourselves a lot more to this audience. Oh, AV, so they know who we are, so you can attract that, right? You got to do it.
Absolutely. All right, y'all. Thank you so much. Charmaine Torella, how do people connect with you and or QSC now, which is going to take me a minute to not get wrong?
Well, you can connect with me on LinkedIn with my last name, Charmaine Torella. Just look me up as it's spelt on the screen. Also on Twitter. But if you want to find me at QSC, it's charmaine.torella@qsc.com.
All right, very good. Cassie Berger, Senior Regional Sales Manager for Integrated Systems. For sure. Thank you, ma'am. How do people connect with you or sure?
Yes, so you can find me on LinkedIn as well, Cassie Berger. And then I'm not cool enough for Twitter, so I'm not on Twitter, which always gets a gasp from everybody. But you can certainly email me at burgerc@sure.com. And please check out our consumer page, sure.com.
All right. Mr. Greenblatt, thank you, sir. How do people connect with you or Control Concepts?
You can find me at Steve Greenblatt on social media, and Control Concepts at controlconcepts.net. And then I have to, as said at the beginning, push out that you can find A State of Control on AVNation.tv with my partner, Rich Fregosa. And I also have one more that now I am excited to talk that we passed a year of doing Ask the Programmer, which is another podcast that I do with James King. So, and I'd love to see everybody at Infocom as well.
How is that going to work now that he's in Vegas? Steve,
we're going to figure it out. It's that internet thing.
James got a new gig out in Vegas. He went from the East Coast over to Sin City. So congratulations to him. But yeah, check out that one as well. For me, for Tim Albright, don't follow me on the Twitters because I am rooting on the Blues and waiting for football to start. But as for AVNation, go by the website avnation.tv. That's avnation.tv. You will find this program and A State of Control. And a host of others, including our coverage of Integrated Systems Europe, which will include the aforementioned Uncle Richie. That came down the pipeline last week, and I'm incredibly excited. Number one, I haven't seen Uncle Richie in person in real life in about 2 years, so I cannot tell you how jazzed I am for that. And then Infocom comes your way the 8th through the 10th of June, so that will be on the website as well. The two parties that we do each and every year. One, there's a tweet up at ISE. There's a tweet up at Infocom. So the tweet up at ISE is the Poly tweet up. It is sponsored by our friends at Poly. It is on Tuesday, the 10th of May, from 3 to 4:30. It is at Poly's booth. The one for Infocom, sponsored by Starin. It is Wednesday, the 8th of June, from 4 to 6 p.m. in W, meaning the West Hall, brand spanking new hall. 228. Mitchell is going to be an incredible producer and put both of those links to both of those events on this show's page. So you can check all of that out and more at avnation.tv. That is avnation.tv. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. That's all the time we have for AV Week.